Gráinne Mhaol, often referred to as the Pirate Queen of Ireland, was born in 1530. Her parents were the Irish chieftain Owen O'Malley and his wife, Maeve. Their clan was one of the seafaring clans of Connaught, living by their clan motto, powerful by land and sea. The clan built a row of castles facing the sea, to protect their territory. Controlling most of what is now the barony of Murrisk in southwest County Mayo. Their castles were built to demand and receive protection money called black rent, from fishermen off their coasts. Those who paid black rent could include fishermen from as far away as England. It is thought that Grace grew up mainly in the family residence of Belclare and Clare Island. Her father may have raised her as a boy, or encouraged her to follow her own heart, and ignore social norms. She was well educated, which was unusual for a girl, and was fluent in Latin and possibly languages of the lands with which they traded, like Spanish and French. There is a story of her as a youth that has come down through Irish lore. As a young girl, Grace wanted to go on a trading expedition to Spain with her father. To dissuade her, she was told she could not go because her long hair would be caught in the ropes of the sails. But this did not deter Grace. So determined was she to be allowed to be aboard ship and on the sea, that she cut off all her hair. This earned her the nickname, Bald Grace. Apparently, doing this was enough to get to go on the voyage. Nobility married to improve their wealth and connections. Grace was no exception. In 1546, at age 16, she married Donal O'Flaherty, the heir to the chiefdom of Clan O'Flaherty. His family was also a seafaring clan. He had expectations of ruling the area roughly equal to modern Connemara. Grace had 3 children with Donal. Owen was her oldest son. He was known to be kind and forgiving. Sadly, Sir Richard Bingham tricked him, took over his castle, murdered him. Her second child was Maeve. Maeve married Richard Burke and had several children. Her third son was Murragh. He is said to have enjoyed warfare. A misogynist, he did not listen to his mother because of her gender, and he beat his sister. Eventually, he betrayed his family and joined Sir Richard Bingham after his brother was murdered. His mother, Grace, never spoke to him after this betrayal. In 1564, Queen Elizabeth named one of Donal's kinsmen as the chief of clan, dashing Donal's hopes as the heir of the chiefdom. Perhaps to assuage this letdown and obtain more territory, Donal began a concerted effort to take control of Clan Joy's lands and territory, including their castle. Unfortunately, in 1565, Donal was killed in an ambush. After his death, Clan Joyce attacked Grace's and Donal's castle, believing that with only a woman to defend the castle, they would have an easy win. They made a mistake. A fearless leader, by land and by sea, Grace fought back and forced Clan Joyce to retreat. Her counteroffensive was so fierce that the castle was renamed Hen's Castle, because she was like a hen protecting her brood. Grace then returned to her childhood residence at Clare Island. She built up Gráinne's castle as one of her 3 main strongholds. Donal's men came and swore allegiance to her. Around this time, she took a shipwrecked sailor as her lover. Sadly, he was murdered by Clan MacMahon. Grace took revenge, attacking the stronghold of Clan MacMahon, Duna Castle, and killed the murderers of her lover. After this, she gained the nickname the Dark Lady of Duna. Soon after, Grace's father died. Though she had a brother, she was the heir, taking over leadership of the clan, land, and sea. Her marriage to Donal had made her a wealthy and influential woman, reportedly owning as much as 1,000 head of cattle and horses. Dissatisfied with the revenge she had taken on Duna Castle and the MacMahon clan over the death of her lover, a year later, Grace attacked them again and took their castle. By 1566, Grace remarried, this time to Richard Burke. Burke was a prestigious landowner and chieftain with ironworks at his castle and residence. He would inherit the landholdings of the MacWilliam clan. These holdings had numerous inlets to hide and launch attacks on unsuspecting vessels. A resolute individual, she was fearless as a sea captain. Legend has it that even when pregnant, she would captain her ships. Richard's and Grace's son, Tibbet, was known as Toby of the ship, due to the circumstances of his birth. The day after Tibbet was born, Algerian pirates attacked their ship. Below deck with her newborn, Grace heard the fight going badly, so she left her son swaddled in blankets, grabbed a sword and rallied her men. During the reign of King Henry VII of England, Gaelic lords were required to surrender their lands to the king, swear loyalty to the crown. Only then were they allowed to remain on their lands, and their lands could be inherited by their sons. This was called the surrender and regrant process. 10 years after her marriage to Richard Burke, in 1574, Grace went through this process so that her children could inherit. Grace also acted as a mercenary, offering her seafaring fleet to others for payment. She is mentioned in a letter from 1577 that was found among English state papers. The letter from the Lord Deputy, Sir Henry Sidney, to his son, stated, "There came to me a most famous feminine sea captain called Grace O'Malley, who offered her services unto me, wheresoever I would command her, with 3 galleys and 200 fighting men." Close to this time, the Earl of Desmond captured Grace and imprisoned her for over a year. She was finally released with the help of Sir John Perrot, who objected to the harsh treatment of the Irish. But, in 1584, Sir Richard Bingham of England became Lord President of Connaught. He began a systematic dismantling of the clan governing structure using ruthless military campaigns, bribery, and pitting one Irish lord against another. Grace continued to defend her property by any means necessary. By the 1590s, the English were encroaching on Grace's power base. Then in May 1593, at the age of 63, when other women might be tending flowers and taking naps with grandchildren, Grace mounted a resistance against Bingham. He retaliated by killing her son Owen. Bingham then imprisoned Tibbet and O'Malley's half-brother. A political pragmatist and politician, Grace determined her only recourse was petitioning Queen Elizabeth I for their release. So in June, Grace sailed to England. Before meeting Queen Elizabeth, Grace completed a list of 18 questions called Articles of Interrogatory. These documents are an important source of information about Grace O'Malley, as a historical figure. The meeting with Queen Elizabeth did take place. According to oral tradition, Grace wore a fine gown worthy of the meeting. Guards and members of Elizabeth's royal court surrounded both women when they met at Greenwich Palace. Known as a shrewd and able negotiator, Grace's meeting with the Queen was successful. After the meeting, Queen Elizabeth ordered an explanation from Sir Richard Bingham. Though he defended himself as innocent of any charges, by the end of September 1593, Elizabeth ordered Bingham to release both Grace's son and half-brother from prison. She also ordered that Grace receive compensation and stated that Bingham should allow Grace and her family ownership of lands and property and protect them to live in peace to enjoy their livelihoods. Queen Elizabeth's communication with Bingham reveals her positive feelings toward Grace, stating that Grace had promised that as long as she lives she will continue to employ all her power to prosecute any offender against the Queen. However, Sir Richard Bingham disagreed with the Queen's decision and apparently didn't obey the Queen's instructions. Only by threatening him that she would return to England to speak to the Queen if he didn't comply, did he agree to release her family. Grace rebuilt her fleet of ships. Yet Bingham took his revenge by quartering a troop of soldiers on her ships and forcing her into service against her own kinsmen. Quartering soldiers during this time means that the homeowner had to supply housing, food, clothing and any other support to the soldiers. He also quartered his soldiers on her other properties. All of this led to Grace O'Malley's impoverishment. Grace, her sons, cousins and followers were forced to withdraw in great distress. In April 1595, Grace returned to England and was again supported by Queen Elizabeth. In August of that same year, a re-grant of the same lands that had been done in 1574 occurred. This re-grant reasserted the O'Malley's rights to their lands. Finally, in September 1595, Grace received real revenge on her enemy, Sir Richard Bingham. Bingham fled from Ireland to England where he was caught and imprisoned. The protective matriarch of her family and tribe, Grace O'Malley broke the mold. As a swashbuckling, seafaring, Irish warrior queen, she died around 1603, at the age of 73, at Rockfleet Castle.
Subscribe to this channel to learn more.